My name is Thomas Jensen. I am 25 years old. I work as a weaver. I have a wife named Anna and a little baby. We live in a small house in a busy street in Haarlem. The big church bells ring every hour over the roof. Life was quiet and good. In the summer of 1572, the big trouble started in our land. The Spanish King Philip ruled over us far away. He wanted more money in taxes and he did not like the new church's ideas. Many people were angry. They wanted more freedom. Then, in April, news came that changed everything. A group of Dutch fighters called the Sea Baggers took the town of Brill. They fought against the Spanish. The news spread fast. People in Holland talk about it in the streets and in the market. And some said, "We must join them," and others said, "It's too dangerous, the Spanish are too strong." Our city leaders had long meetings. They were careful. Most of them did not want open war, but many normal people like me wanted to support Prince William of Orange. He was fighting for our freedom. On July the 4th, 1572, the big decision came. The city chose to support the prince, and we said we would not obey the Spanish king anymore. We will fight for our land and our beliefs. Church bells ring all day and people cheered in the streets, and I felt proud. That same week I joined the city army. Like most men, we could fight, and I went to the market square on Sundays to practice. We learned to hold a long spear and load a gun. We looked clumsy next to the English and German helpers, but we laughed and tried hard. And I was worried, but she understood. We must protect our baby, she said. Life changed little by little. We fixed the old city walls. We put extra guards at the gates. And in the evening, I came home tired. Anna had made simple food, and we sat by the fire. I told her stories about the practice, and she told me the baby was growing stronger. Those were still good days. But dark clouds were coming. In August and September, we heard about the bad news from other towns. The Spanish army was angry about our choice. They had burned some places that also joined the prince. People whispered about the big Spanish force moving north. Don Frederick is coming, they said. He was the son of the cruel Duke of Alba. His name alone made people afraid. Autumn came, and the leaves turned brown. The wind from the big lakes felt cooler, and we worked harder on the wolves. Governor Witbold Rieperda came to watch our training. He told us, "Be ready, we will not give up easily." I stood on the wall, and sometimes at night I looked out of the dark fields. Everything was still quiet, but I felt in my bones that something was coming. Then, on December the 3rd, 1572, everything changed. That morning, a messenger rode into the city with a letter. It was from Stadhouder Bossu and Don Frederick. The letter was read out loud in the market square. Everyone came to listen. It said, "Give up now. Open your gates. If you do not, we will take the city by force." The square was dead quiet. Then our leaders stood up. They said, "No, we will not give up. We had chosen our side. We will fight for Haarlem and for the prince." People cheered, but I saw fear in many eyes. I ran home to Anna. She held the baby tight. "What will happen now?" she asked. I have no good answer. That same day, the first Spanish scouts appeared near the fields, and by evening we knew the big army was close. We were under threat. The quiet life was over and the storm was here. Food was still enough for now, but we all knew it would not last. The cold winter was coming, and the Spanish guns would soon start to fire. I stood on the wall that night with my spear in my cold hands. The drums in the distance were still far away, but they were coming. This was only the beginning. That same night, after the ladder, I could not sleep. The baby cried a little and Emma held him close. I sat by the fire and listened. Far away, I heard the first Spanish drums, slow and heavy. They were still far, but they were coming closer. On December 11, the big Spanish army arrived, more than 14,000 men. I stood on the city wall when they came. The field to the south and east turned black with soldiers. Tents went up fast. The fires burned all night like red eyes watching us. The cold wind from the big lake made everything worse. My hands hurt from the frost. We were now trapped. No one could leave the city. No food or help could come in. Governor Wigbald Ripperda rode along the walls. His voice was strong. "We will hold the city," he shouted. "For the prince, for our freedom," we cheered. But inside, I felt fear. The big guns started on December 18. The sound was terrible. Every boom made the ground shake under my feet. Every iron balls flew through the air and crashed into old brick walls. Pieces of stone flew everywhere. Dust fell on the roofs of the houses behind us. One ball hit the meat market and brought through the roof. The smell of gun smoke was everywhere. It burned in our nose and throat. I stood next to my neighbor Peter on the wall. We loaded our guns with cold, shaking hands. "They want to break us fast," Peter said quietly, "but we will not let them in." On December the 21st, the first big attack came. It was still dark. The Spanish trumpets sounded loud across the fields. Then thousands of soldiers ran to us. They carried long ladders and heavy bundle sticks to fill the ditches around the wall. They screamed "Santiago" as they came closer. We fired everything we had. Bullets, stones, hot tar. I remember the smell of burning tar and the cries of men on fire. One Spanish officer climbed almost on the top of the wall right next to me. He was young, like me. His face was full of anger. I swung my long spear hard. The blades hit his shoulder. He fell back in the deep ditch, still screaming. Smoke was so thick I could hardly see. Men shouted and cried all around me. Kino Hustler stood there too, a strong woman with arms like iron. She threw heavy stones down with other women. Her voice was louder than the guns. "For Haarlem, for the prince." We pushed them back that day. By evening, the field in front of the wall was full of dead Spanish soldiers. Their bodies lay frozen on the snow. The blood looked black in the cold. Governor Ripperda walked along the wall that night. He clapped us on the shoulder. "Good work, man," he said. But I saw the worry in his eyes. The walls were old and thin, and the Spanish had many more men and many more guns. I went home for 2 short hours. The church bells rang for the dead. Emma waited at the door. She gave me the last piece of good breath. Her hands were cold. "The baby kicked again today," she whispered. I held her close. She smelled the wood smoke from the fire. I tried not to think about what would happen if the Spanish broke through. But the days after that grew harder. The winter became very cold, and snow fell every day. The big lake started to freeze. Food in the city was getting less. We had to eat smaller portions, and people stood in long lines for breath. Some whispered about hunger. Every night I stood guard. The Spanish drums never stopped. The fires burned bright. Sometimes we shot at them in the dark, just to keep them away. Once, a small group of Spanish soldiers tried to come close to the wall at night. We threw burning wood down, and they ran. I began to feel tired all the time. My body hurt from the cold and the fighting. But I thought about Emma and the baby. They give me strength. Then, at the end of December, something new happened. The lake was now frozen solid. Some of our men put on skates and went out at night to attack the Spanish camp. They moved fast on the ice. I wanted to go with them, but Paradise sailors had to stay in the wall. I heard the fighting far away, shots, shouts, and then our men came back with a few Spanish guns they had taken. For a moment we felt strong again, but I knew it was only a small win. The Spanish were still all around us, and the real winter was only just the beginning. Food was now very low. Anna told me the baby was hungry. Her eyes looked tired. I gathered my own small piece of bread. Outside the wall, the Spanish were building bigger guns. We could see them moving heavy things in the snow. I stood in the wall that night and looked out. The cold wind cut into my face. My stomach felt empty. We had held them back for now, but how long could we last? The hunger was coming, and the long winter was coming, and the Spanish were not going away. The cold became worse after the new year. Snow fell every day, and the big lake froze thick and hard. My boots stayed wet, and my toes turned white and burned with pain. In January, we started fighting on the ice. Some of our men put on skates made of bone. They slid out of night to attack the Spanish camp. I went once. The ice was black under the moon. We moved fast. Then the Spanish saw us. Guns fired. A bullet hit one man next to me. Blood sprayed across the ice. He screamed and fell into the water where the ice broke. We could not save him, and we left him there. We shot back and took 2 Spanish guns, but 3 of our men died. Their bodies froze stiff on the ice. The Spanish tried to cross the ice too. One morning, hundreds came sliding towards the city. They fell often. Their heavy boots broke the ice in places, and we shot from the wall and watched them all fall into the cold water. Their bodies floated under the ice like dark shadows. Back in the city, the food was almost gone. First, we ate the horses. We cut them in the streets. The meat was tough and full of blood. People fought over the bones. Then the dogs and cats disappeared. People ate the rats. I saw a woman catch one with her bare hands and bite off his head off. Her face was thin and dirty. By February, we boiled leather, old shoes, belts, anything. The taste was like dirt and made your stomach cramp hard. My baby cried all night from hunger. Anna's milk was gone. She gave him water and tiny bits of bread that were mostly dust. Her eyes looked big in a thin face. "He's getting weaker," she said. She has no tears left. Wounds from the fighting would not heal. A small cut became a big open sore that bled for days. Many men lay on the street with black legs from the cold. They cried in pain until they died. I saw a man cut off his own frozen toes with a knife. Blood ran dark in the snow, and he screamed but kept cutting. Every day the Spanish guns fired. Pieces of the wall fell down. We worked with bleeding hands to fix them with dirt and wood. One night a cannonball hit the house next to ours. The roof came down. A whole family dived into the bricks. We pulled out the bodies and the father hat was gone. The child was still warm. Kano Hassela still fought in the wall. She looked like a skeleton now. Her arms were thin, but she threw stones and screamed at the Spanish. "Come and get us, you bastards!" Even she looked ready to fall. In March, the Prince of Orange tried to help. 400 soldiers came across the lake on skates. They brought a little food, and we cheered when they arrived. But the food lasted only for a few days, and then the hunger came back, even harder. People started to eat the dead. I heard it at first as a whisper. Then I saw it. A man cut meat from a frozen body in a dark alley. No one stopped him. I looked away. My own stomach hurt. but I was too hungry to feel sick about it. Governor Ripperda came to the walls last afternoon. His face was grey, and he knew we could not hold much longer. Some men talked about giving up, and others said we should fight to the end. I said nothing. I only wanted to have food for Anna and the baby. One night in April, I came home after a guard duty. Anna sat on the floor. The baby did not move much. His skin was pale and thin like paper. "She has not cried today," she said. Her voice was flat. I gave her a small piece of boiled leather I had saved. She ate it without looking at me. Outside, the church bells rang for the dead again. More every day. The Spanish drums still beat. The fire still burned. They had lost many men too, but they had food and we had nothing. The spring came slow. The ice started to melt in places. The smell of death came up from the ground. Dead bodies thawed and the flies arrived early. I stood on the wall one morning and my legs shook from hunger. I looked out at the Spanish camp. We had held them for months, but now the city was dying from the inside, and the wall still stood, but the people inside were breaking. Anna asked me that night if the baby would live. I had no answer. I held her cold hands and listened to the guns. The end was coming, not from the Spanish swords, but from the empty plates, the cold and the slow death inside her own walls. And still the drums kept beating. In May, the last hope came and went. The Prince of Orange sent another group of soldiers to break the siege. They fought in the wet fields outside the walls. We heard the guns and the screams from the top of the wall. For one day we believed help had finally arrived. Then the Spanish pushed them back. Most of them died in the mud. No food reached the city. The hunger became even worse. By the middle of June, almost everyone was too weak to stand long. Men on the wall fell asleep while loading the guns. Their hands were covered in open wounds that would not stop bleeding. I wrapped my own bleeding fingers in dirty cloth every morning, and the pain was constant. People died faster now. Every day we carried the bodies to the church square. There was no space left to bury them. The dead lay in long rows. Their faces were thin and their eyes were open. I saw children's arms no thicker than sticks, and the mothers held them until the mothers themselves fell down and did not get up. Anna and the baby were still alive, but I knew they were close to the end. I brought home every small piece of food I could find, some beans, a piece of boiled leather. It was never enough. Governor Ripperda called the soldiers together on July the 12th. His face was grey and his voice was almost gone. "We have fought for 7 months," he said. "There is no food left. The Spanish have offered terms. If we open the gates tomorrow, they will not burn the city, and the soldiers must surrender." No one cheered it, and no one shouted. Some men cried quietly. Others looked at the ground. I thought only of Emma and the baby. I wanted them to live. On the morning of July the 13th, 1573, we opened the gates, and the Spanish army marched in. Their boots made a heavy sound on the stones, and Don Frederic rode at the front. His face showed no pity. They kept their word about the city. The houses were not burned, but the soldiers were taken. More than 2,000 of us were led outside the gate to an open field. They put us along lines. Then the killing started. Spanish soldiers used swords and guns. Men fell with blood pouring from the chest and neck. Some begged for mercy. Others stood straight and said nothing. I saw my neighbor Peter get a sword in his side. He dropped to his knees. His blood ran dark on the grass. He looked at me once. Then he fell forward. I waited in line. My heart beat hard against my ribs. My mouth was dry. I thought about Anna, waiting at home with the baby. Then a Spanish officer pointed at me and a few others. "City militia," he said. "You go back, and the rest stay." They let a small group of us live. I do not know why. Maybe they needed men for work. Maybe they were just tired of the killing. I walked back through the empty streets. The city was silent, and people stood in the doorways with thin faces. Many cried when they saw their husband or son did not return. When I reached our house, Anna was sitting on the floor. The baby was in her arms. Both were very weak, but still breathing. She looked up at me with sunken eyes. "You came back," she said softly. I knelt down and held them. My hands still had blood on them from the wall. I went back to my weaving work. My hands shook every time I touched the loom. At night, I still heard the Spanish drums and the sound of guns in my head. Anna spoke very little about these 7 months. The baby slowly gained a little strength and started to make small sounds again, but sometimes he woke up crying in the dark. I often walked to the wall where I had stood there for so many cold nights. The fields were green now, and the blood had washed away with the rain. But I still saw the frozen bodies, the man with bleeding wounds, and the empty eyes of my friends who never came home. We had held the city for 7 long months. We paid with blood, with open wounds, with terrible hunger, and with many lives. The Spanish won the battle, but the fight for our land and our freedom did not stop here. This is what I saw and lived through in the Siege of Haarlem. War is not glory. It is pain, bleeding, slow that from hunger, and the cold faces of the dead. I will carry it with me until the day I die.